Let me ask you a question, right? When was the last time you stopped, looked at your life, and asked yourself one simple question, right? One simple question. Did I choose this life or did I just end up here? Think about it. Like most of us wake up at the same time, right? Drive the same roads, right? Go to the same job, talk to the same people, come home, watch the same shows, go to sleep. Then we wake up and do it all over again. Day after day, right? Week after week, year after year. And somewhere along the way, right, we stop asking why. We just accept that this is how life is supposed to be. But what if it isn't? What if you've been living according to expectations that were never really yours, right? From the moment we're born, people start telling us who we should become. Parents have expectations. Teachers have expectations. Friends have expectations. Society has expectations. By the time we're adults, we heard thousands of opinions about what success is supposed to look like, right? Go to school, get a good job, buy a house, work for 40 years, right? Retire. And if your life doesn't follow that path, right? People start asking questions like, man, when are you getting married? And like, when are you buying a house? When are you going to settle down? It's almost like this, like an invisible like timeline everyone is expecting to follow, right? But who wrote that timeline? Like, did you? Like, who wrote that time? Like, man, we ain't dealing with or did you inherit it without ever questioning it? Or now, don't get me wrong. Look, there's nothing wrong with having a traditional life if that's generally what you want. The problem comes when you're living someone else's definition of success, right? You got to think for yourself, man. Look, maybe you stayed in a career you don't enjoy because you're afraid of disappointing people. Am I right or wrong? Maybe you talked yourself out of starting a business because someone told you it wasn't realistic. Maybe you buried a dream because it didn't seem practical. And after hearing be realistic enough times, you start believing it was possible. Am I right or wrong? Here's the thing. Most people don't make one big decision that determines their future. A lot of times they make thousands of small decisions. Those small decisions become habits. Those habits become routines, right? Those routines become years. And before they know it, right, they're living a life they never intentionally chose. Psychologists, right, sometimes call this living on autopilot, right? Look, living on autopilot. It's when your brain relies on routines and familiar patterns instead of making conscious decisions. Autopilot isn't always bad, right? That's from what they say. It helps us drive, brush our teeth, and perform everyday tasks without thinking through every step. But if too much life is on autopilot, you can wake up one day wondering where the years went. I need y'all to question that, though. Now, here's something I want you to think about, though, but still question that. If I asked you to describe the life you truly want, could you? Remember what I said previously. Not the life your family wants, not the life social media tells you to want. Not the life your friends expect. Your life, man. Look, what does it look like? What does your life look like? What kind of person are you becoming, right? What kind of work gives you purpose? What legacy do you want to leave behind? Those aren't easy questions, man. Like, come on, be honest with yourself. But they might be the most important questions you'll ever ask yourself. Because once you stop living by default, which a lot of people are, you finally get the chance to start living by design. And that raises an even bigger question, because if so much of our lives is shaped by habits, expectations, and routines, how much control do we actually have? Let's talk about let's talk about that next, right? Are you living the life you chose? Like, right? Who's really making your decisions in your life, right? So let me ask you something. How many decisions do you think you've made today? You probably remember choosing what to eat, on what to wear, whether to watch this video, maybe whether to go to work or hit the gym. But here's what's interesting. Psychologists have found that a lot of what we do each day is driven by habits and automatic routines rather than fresh, deliberate decisions. Think about your morning. How was your morning? Did you consciously think about every single step? Or did you just do it? You brushed your teeth, checked your phone, got dressed, maybe grabbed some coffee, maybe got in your car and drove to work. Come on. What's crazy is you probably don't remember every turn you made on a drive because your brain was running on autopilot. Now that's actually a good thing. He's talking about this again. If your brain had to constantly think through every tiny action, you'd be exhausted before lunchtime. Habits save energy. They help us function. But here's the problem. The same autopilot that helps you build good routines can also trap you in bad ones. Think about it. How many people stay in jobs they hate simply because it's familiar? How many stay in unhealthy relationships because leaving feels more frightening than staying? How many give up on dreams because they repeated the same excuses for so many years that those excuses begin to sound like facts? I'm too old. I don't have enough money. I'm not smart enough. Someone else is already doing it. Those thoughts become habits. And habits become identities. Pay attention, man. Eventually, people stop saying, like, I failed. They start saying, I'm a failure. Do you see the difference? One describes an event, the other becomes part of your identity. And once you believe something about yourself, your actions often begin to reflect that belief. And now imagine the opposite. Imagine someone who says, I don't know how to do this yet. I've never succeeded yet. I'm still learning. Notice that one small word, right? Yet. That single word changes everything. Instead of closing the door, it leaves it open. It reminds you that where you are today doesn't have to be where you stay tomorrow. Think about every person you've ever admired. Successful entrepreneurs, great athletes, right? Artists, right? Inventors, right? People who change history, right? Do you really think they were born knowing exactly what to do? Of course not. They learned, right? They failed. They adapted. And they kept moving. The difference wasn't that life was easier for them. The difference was that they refused to let today's circumstances define tomorrow's possibilities. Now here's something that doesn't get talked about enough, right? The people around you also influence the life you choose. Think about your closest friends, the people you spend the most time with, the conversations you have every day. Are they encouraging you to grow? Or are they constantly reminding you why your goals won't work? Because attitudes spread. Optimism spreads. Negativity spreads too. That doesn't mean you stop loving people who think differently, but it does mean you should pay attention to the voices you listen to the most. Eventually, those voices become part of your own inner dialogue. So if you're surrounded by people who constantly tell you what's impossible, you may begin believing that yourself, right? But if you're surrounded by people who challenge you, who encourage you, who remind you that growth takes time, right? You'll often start expecting more from yourself, and that changes the choices you make. Which brings us to an important realization. Maybe the life you're living today isn't the result of one massive decision. Maybe it's the result of hundreds of tiny decisions, repeated over and over again. And if that's true, then maybe changing your life doesn't begin with one giant leap. Maybe it begins with one small decision you make today, right? Listen to me on this, because the future isn't built all at once. It's built one choice at a time. But here's the big question of all. Now pay attention to me, what I'm saying. If you realize today that you've been living on autopilot, how do you actually take control? Are you hearing me? How do you stop drifting through life and start living with intention? That's exactly what we're going to explore. Are you living a life you choose, right? Or you chose? The life you want, build us up. You've been living sitting off here on based on, hey,